This is Tuesdays with Ted. That's me. And I'm sharing with you everything that I know in hopes that you can elevate your life. Hi everyone, it's Ted. How's it going? It is 3 o'clock Tuesday, which means it's Tuesdays with Ted, me. And today I'm sharing with you everything that I know about meditation. So on Tuesdays, I go live every week, and these last few weeks have been putting together my 10-step plan essentially to conscious endurance, to live a conscious lifestyle, which means to me to feel young, to stay strong forever, right? So there's kind of a 10-step plan that I've devised in my thinking brain, and I'm just going to share all the tips and tricks. So today we talk about meditation, all right? What is meditation? Why do we want to do it? And how do we do it, and what are the benefits to meditation and all this kind of stuff. So simply, meditation really is, to me, anything that you do that sort of helps you feel calm, right? I mean, that's ultimately, I think, what we all want, is to be happy, to be calm, to be relaxed, right? And I think meditation is one technique to help us get there. And by the way, for those of you joining us, you can feel free to throw out any questions you have or any comments you have. It's an interactive discussion. I always come to this with an idea and I start sharing about it, and then ultimately it turns into a little discussion. Today, my plan is actually to talk about the benefits of meditation and why we would want to meditate, what happens when we meditate, why it's so hard to meditate for a lot of people, and ultimately in the meditation aspect, how, like, some steps that we can actually do to meditate. So, hey Jordan, how's it going? So Jordan is actually a new acquaintance friend who's going to be riding across the country from New York to San Francisco. I think he's crazy, but it's something that I would totally do. And there's an organization, they're doing this they all have type 1 diabetes. It's an organization called Beyond Type 1, and it's going to be an amazing event coming June. I think they start in New York around June 4th or something, and they make it all the way across the country on August 11th, I think, is when they're going to make it. So it'll be fun to join in their journey. I can put a link, actually, out when we're done. I'll put a link to their page down below. So those of you that feel like you wanted to support the ride, you could actually donate. And I'm one of the coaches, trainers. I'm the wellness coach for the people who are riding across the country. So one of the things we talk about with the riders specifically is meditation, right? How do you relax? How do you do it during a sport, say, for instance? Because as far as I'm concerned, meditation doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be done, like our lovely Buddha here on a regular. You don't have to sit like this and meditate. And by the way, when I was in India years ago, there was no. And we were like, oh, so is that what Buddha looked like? Someone asked, because we were in where the Bodhi tree was, where the Buddha became enlightened, and someone in our group was like, is that what Buddha looked like? Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, that's the guy. And they were like, no, nobody really knows what he looked like, because the statues of Buddha didn't come for a few hundred years until after he actually died. Right? So the story, if you don't know the story of Buddha, he was a prince, and his parents essentially kept him in their castle, I guess, in their compound, and everything was beautiful and everything was wonderful and everything was perfect. Well, he happened to catch a glimpse outside the compound, and he saw that there were people that didn't look as perfect as everybody inside the compound, and he was like, hey, wait a second, what's going on? And then he escaped essentially and started searching and seeing real life and seeing all these people suffering. And then he decided he felt like he needed to do something about it. And not to go into all the details of, he basically spent 9 weeks under this Bodhi tree meditating, finally reached enlightenment, and then came back and decided he was going to go teach all these different things that he learned in that time. And so this, I think, ultimately he was teaching the four Noble Truths, which is basically the Buddhist tradition, religion, whatever you want to call it. And it's ultimately kind of like the Ten Commandments. There's the Eightfold Path, which is right livelihood, right living, right speech, right thought, right action, all these things. But ultimately, it's kind of to live a peaceful life, right? Non-harming, peaceful life. So why do I say all that? Because it relates to meditating. I think one of the main things one of the main reasons we want to meditate is to ultimately feel calm and relaxed. So I think the first thing to do is to be aware of how you feel. So if you're feeling a little tensed or a little stressed out, where do you feel that? Do you feel it in your shoulders? Do you feel it in your neck? Do you feel it in your head, in your scalp? Do you feel it in your back? Right? These emotional instability is probably not the right word, but the emotional ups and downs will take some sort of shape in your body. And your body is a reflection of how calm your mind is. So if your body's a mess, most likely it relates to your mind, and maybe things need to be in jive a little bit more. They need to jive a little bit more. So one thing to understand is to become aware. So when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing that you do? So lately, the first thing that I've been doing is sitting up on the edge of my bed, just taking a nice deep breath, being grateful that I'm alive, that I made it another day, and then I've been having an Achilles issue, so I've been dealing with repairing my Achilles, which takes a longer time than just a little cut on your arm. So it's been a couple months so far, and it's getting much better, thankfully. But I just kind of start to roll it a little bit and work out a little bit of some tightness from sleep. But then I do a nice little twist, take a breath, and then I usually go straight to the bathroom. And then I'll, from there, go do a nice short meditation. And not every day, but most days I do. I try to get at least 15 minutes. I don't feel nearly as good if I'm getting 10, 12, so I try to get more like 15 to 20. For me, it seems like 12 minutes a day is in the morning is too short. But 15 is like perfect. 15 to 20 is perfect. And what that does ultimately for me is it kind of sets me up. I just had a conversation with a client yesterday, and he said that there was a meditation teacher he knew that said it takes you 8 minutes just to kind of get to a place that you're more calm and relaxed. So for me, I sit up on the side of my bed. I just kind of check in with myself first. I breathe, check in with my body, check in with my breath. Like I said, go to the bathroom, and I'll go sit. And the way I meditate is I just sit. I just close my eyes, I relax, and I breathe. And I'm aware first of how I'm feeling and how, if I'm hurting at all. But there's three main ideas behind the meditation practice, three kind of, I would say, fundamentals: a straight spine, even breath, and a single pointed focus. These are the basics behind meditation that I was taught. Hey, Merrick, how's it going? So the way I do that is I sit. I usually prop my hips up slightly so that I'm not slouching. When I prop my hips up above my knees, then my legs can kind of drop down. I can kind of sit cross-legged. I can relax my shoulders. My spine is straight. My jaw level to the ground, so I'm not dropping my head, and I'm not doing all kinds of weird things. And by the way, speaking of weird things, it's totally fine to find a meditation practice that works for you, however you find it. Before I actually started officially meditating, when I was just sitting in silence, I would come home and I'd lie on my bed and I'd turn music on, I'd dim the lights, and that was my form of meditation. And that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Ultimately, there's a million different kinds of meditation techniques. We can talk about one meditation technique where you imagine from the center of your heart is a budding rose. And then from that rose is another big rose that encompasses a little bit more space. And then another one that encompasses more space. And then it gets all like trippy but you're doing this visual technique, essentially, to stop the mind from bouncing in this 70,000 thoughts that it has every day. And that's ultimately the goal of all meditation, is not necessarily to stop the mind, but just to get you in a place where you're focused, where you're not super distracted, where you're not stressed out. And when I spend my 10, 15, 20 minutes in the morning, I feel calmer and I feel a little bit more relaxed. And even if, like, the perfect example is if I'm, rushing to go teach a class or a client or something like that, if I've meditated, I'm okay with being a minute late or 2 minutes late or whatever. If I haven't, sometimes I notice that I get a little bit more stressed out. So part of this whole experience is really understanding your own system, right? Your own life and how you actually deal with life on a daily basis. So if you find yourself stressed out, what makes you stressed out? Why are you getting stressed out? You have to look at these things. Otherwise, the meditation is just a tool. But unless you understand how to use the hammer, you're not really going to be able to put the nail in. You're just going to go, oh, this is a hammer. It's the hammer from New York. But those of you, hey, Scott. Merrick is asking, hold on, for even breath, would you suggest breathing out through the nose, or is it all subjective per person? So that's an interesting thing. There's something called Ujjayi breath. There's a million different forms of breathing too. Ujjayi breath sounds like Darth Vader with your mouth closed. I don't know if you can hear that. So that's Ujjayi breathing. It's very traditional yoga type breathing, but in a meditation, so you can do that. Sometimes it helps to do that to kind of start your meditation. It kind of helps kind of get you focused for a moment, but then relax it. Ultimately, in and out of the nose is fine. If I feel like in and out of the nose is a little calmer. If you have to breathe, if you can't breathe in and out of your nose, then in and out of your mouth is fine too. So whatever really makes sense. There's another kind of breathing called limbic breathing, which kind of helps you get right into a more calm state. And that's essentially inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, exhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, and then repeating that. So you just go inhale, hold, exhale, hold, and then eventually you'll do those things that are a little bit more like immediately you just feel the energy relax, and then you can do that just to kind of get right into the state of being calm and then start meditating after that. Merrick, you started doing vocal ohms the past couple of days, and it's quite different. So if you ohming is, again, another very traditional thing that people have done for years and years. Om in Hindu, hey Jeff, in the Hindu tradition essentially is that they believe that was the first sound. So when you om, right, just om. I used to, with one of my first teachers, we would spend Friday nights oming for like a half an hour, 45 minutes, just of repetitive ohms. And it was unbelievable, really. I mean, it was quite a fantastic feeling, because when you sing, there's a kind of yoga, I'm not going to, this is a little bit off on a tangent, but there's a kind of yoga called Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is devotional yoga, where you're singing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, right, or Hare Rama, Rama Rama, right. And so I don't have a great singing voice at all, but but people sing, and the energy, you can feel the energy in your body. They call it Shakti, that divine energy in your body, and it wakes up, and it's like, it's unreal. It's like this kind of, you get into this total blissed out state of being when you're doing all that singing. Oming is similar. So when you're oming, I mean, some people are okay with it, some people are not okay with it. I don't do it that much in my class. Once in a while we'll do it sometimes on retreats and stuff. But it's a good thing, Merrick. If you're doing it on a regular basis, then I'd say feel free to keep on doing it. It definitely, similar to the breathing, will help you actually get into a nice state of calmness, right? So the 3 fundamentals: straight spine, even breath, single pointed focus. And like I said, there are a million different kinds of techniques to meditation, and ultimately what you want is that technique to go away. So you want the technique to go away and you just want to live in the moment. You want to be comfortable in your own skin, and you want to be going from moment to moment as present as you can. So mindfulness, the mindfulness stress reduction technique is there's an 8-week course. You can look up for it online. And mindfulness has been around for 40 years. I think it was the late 60s. John Kabat-Zinn started the whole thing and he brought it to, I think it was Boston University maybe, or UMass, I forget. He kind of brought it to patients in the hospital, and they started meditating and started making them feel better. Merrick says your nerves feel a lot more relaxed after hearing the voice. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, if you're okay with it, then definitely do it. Or, some people get a little conscious about their own voice. When I started doing this in groups years ago, ultimately the teachers were just like, don't worry about your own voice, because no one around you can hear them, because their own voice is so loud they can't hear what's going on next to them. So it was really just about singing and just kind of opening up and really relaxing as much as you could do into the sound. But so back to the meditation. So you have the straight spine, even breath, single pointed focus. And the way that I like to think of that is this is something that I give to everyone and most of my classes. I talk about this, is you come up with a focal point. And a focal point could be your third eye center, if you're into the energy centers in the body, could be the heart center, could be the beach, could be the top of a mountain, and you want to focus on that point, okay? Could be the image of a Buddha, and you close your eyes and you just sit and you relax and you just think about that particular. Now, inevitably, you're going to be distracted. You'll be distracted by your own thinking, somebody knocking at the door, a truck driving by, whatever it is. Your mind, which thinks 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day, is going to be distracted from that focal point. Therein lies the exercise. The exercise of exercising on your mind, repetitive movement of getting that mind back to the focal point. So if I'm thinking about something different, come back. Think about something different, come back. And then what happens is you acknowledge the thoughts that come through. All these thoughts are going to come through your mind. Acknowledge them, let them go. Acknowledge the other thought, and then let it go. And then acknowledge another thought and let it go. And eventually there's a little bit of space in between the thoughts. And so you acknowledge a thought, let it go, breathe, and then maybe the thoughts slow down. They don't come in as fast, right? It's not as, you're not as chatty. It's not as, bouncy, that mind. And then you start to go, oh, wow, there is a little bit of more calmness. There is a little bit of space in between the thoughts. So then you start to focus on that space. And then you go, oh yeah, I'm thinking about, it's tax day today. It's the 18th. I gotta print out my extensions and send in some money. And so then I breathe and I relax. I let that thought go. And then, another thought comes in. I probably shouldn't just sit here and meditate in silence. That probably wouldn't be as interesting. Maybe it would be. Maybe we should all just do a virtual meditation. But the idea, you see, is to learn to train yourself how to stay calm, regardless of what's up here. Because sometimes, and I think this is probably pretty common belief for everyone, is that really the mind that holds us back. And the way that we stop allowing the mind to hold us back is to understand it more, and then to start to use it to our benefit. And unless you understand where your thoughts are coming from, or how they're getting there, or what they even are, there's no way to change, right? If you have 50, 70,000 thoughts in a day, they're just coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. And the idea is to go, oh, you know what? I'm thinking about this more. We used to say, like after a breakup, is so-and-so renting space in your brain? Like, it's because all you're thinking about is that particular thing. Like if you're in a crisis, for instance, now, you just can't get out of thinking about this particular, whatever it is, breakup, loss of a job, loss of a loved one, whatever it is, it just takes up the whole, there's no peace, there's no calmness, right? But when you start to detach from that particular thought pattern, you can begin to understand that if you can do that, then you can shift the mind a little bit, just a little, right? Just change it a little bit, and then start going down a whole separate path that allows you to get back to that place of peace and calmness. I think that we're all humans. I think that we all have that place inside us. Now, some of us have gone through very, very intense situations, and maybe that place of peace and calmness inside us isn't as easily accessible as it is for others. I think it takes practice. Merrick heard an Eastern metaphor that the mind is a kite and breathing is the string. Well, that's very true. I think I've heard that too before. And so the idea is to come back to your breath. Always come back to your breath. So you're sitting tall, relaxing, breathing, picking your focal point, and then when you're distracted, come back to the breathing, pick the focal point, understand the body. Use things that help you come back to the moment. And that you can do on a more regular basis. So this is something too that I really want to make sure you understand, which is that you don't have to meditate for 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, 10 minutes even. You can do it while you're driving, while you're on the train. You can, if you're in a big city, you could do it on a bus. All you got to do is just sit back in your chair, close your eyes. At work, you could sit back in your chair, close your eyes for a minute, take a deep breath. And that's really all it takes. So if you can just remember that, just focusing on the breath. So I created a little online course called the 7-Day Meditation. I'll put a link into that after. But the idea essentially is to start with the breathing, right? So you get a few videos to start, and then if you want to go deeper, you can go deeper. But those first few videos are all about connecting with the breathing, understanding that it doesn't take a lot to meditate. Meditation shouldn't be this big weird thing. It's getting better now, right? A lot of people now understand, like, oh, hey, meditation is actually, a lot of successful people are meditating. Oh, wow. And oh yeah, I guess they've been meditating since, I don't know, since the time, since man began, like, I guess, right? Back when we were hunters and gatherers, we just kind of sit after we killed our food. You just sit and chill and relax. It's a form of meditation, right? Running is a form of meditation. That's for sure a form of meditation for me. Yoga is a form of meditation. It's a form of moving meditation. And ultimately, again, it's being in the moment, being present, which is where the whole mindfulness, all about mindfulness, the mindfulness technique, essentially is all about being present, right? So there's eating meditation or drinking meditation. So I'm going to take a drink. I'm going to pay attention to the fact that I'm holding the bottle. I'm going to pay attention to the fact that this bottle is going to touch my lips, and then I'm going to have to suck in the liquid and swallow and breathe, right? And it's not just like, but you're paying attention to actually what's happening instead of just blindly doing this and moving around and doing 17 things at once. The idea is to really pay much more attention to those things. So that's what I would recommend to you, is to start to pay way more attention to actually what you're doing, not to pay attention to 17 other things that you need to do next. And I'm not saying don't set goals. I'm not saying don't strive for those things that you want to do. That's how you create a life plan. It's how you save for retirement, because at some point you're going to hopefully be well enough to use the money that you saved in retirement. So similarly, you want to keep your body healthy, but you also want to keep your mind healthy. I mean, last week, I think it was last Wednesday, I taught an event. It was at Lululemon in Calabasas, and it was a bunch of guys. It was a men's event. It's about 13 guys, I think, all of us together. And there was, all kinds of like sports medicine guys, like CrossFit people. It was a doctor, like an orthopedic surgeon guy. So it was a bunch of dudes into health and fitness and sports science, and it was a very cool event. So I taught yoga, and then we kind of had a discussion, and we talked about this. And one of the guys there is a doctor. He said he sees so many people whose issue really comes from stress. He's an orthopedic guy, so he'll see knee issues, ankle issues, shoulder issues, this issue, that issue. But when he assesses all these people, and he's like, well, how did this happen? He's like, oh, well, I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that. And sure enough, I'm stressed. I need to release stress and exercise. And then sure enough, this happened. Well, I think that's a really, 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 chronic issue for people is stress. So meditation is your key to stopping and halting that stress. So really pay attention to your mind. I'm going to wrap it up here in a minute, but really so if you have another question, feel free to put it in there. But really pay attention to your mind and your mind patterns. Next week, we talk about mindset. So you can click the subscribe button. There should be a subscribe button there to remind you, and then you'll get a little notification when I go live. But I'll be back here next week. We'll be talking about mindset. But with meditation, the reason meditation is first and mindset is after in this 10 steps of conscious endurance is because you want to understand the mind first before you start to use it to your benefit. So understand your mind, take those few moments during the day, anytime, and calm down. Whether it's the limbic breathing that we talked about, whether it's oming that you want to do when you're in the car, whether, or at home, or whether it's just simply taking a deep breath, and even do it before you go to bed. So if meditation is not your thing, but you really think you can find some benefits to it, then go ahead and just lie down before you go to bed, shut down all the lights, and give yourself 30 seconds and just say, okay, I'm going to officially meditate here. I'm going to sit up in my bed, close my eyes, take 30 seconds, and then go to bed. So it's those little moments, instead of going from moment to moment to moment to moment to moment to moment to moment, you take a couple of stops in between. Think about arriving to a place a minute early, just to take a moment. Find that peace inside. Thank you so much for watching, you guys, and I will see you next week.